I'm Val. Welcome back to our forest ecology series. Last time you learned about the forest's decomposers, the FBI. Do you remember what FBI stands for? The FBI are the fungi, bacteria, and invertebrates that break down dead organisms and wastes into soil. And that soil is what we're going to talk about today. Do you remember way back when we talked about the laws of the ecosystem? What were the laws again? Light, air, water, and soil. And are they biotic or abiotic? They're abiotic, right? Do you remember how we said that soil was a kind of funny one that we'd come back to later? Well, here we are. Today, we're going to talk about soil because soil is the strange and fascinating exception that has both biotic and abiotic parts. How can that be? How can something be both alive and dead at the same time? To start to dig into that question, let's think about what soil is. It's the stuff on the ground, right? The surface layer of the earth. Can you think of some things that are parts of soil? Things that are in soil? In some places, it's full of sand and rocks. And in others, it might be that rich, soft brown stuff that you find on a forest floor. Maybe it's mucky and full of water. And you might think of some organisms that live in the soil too, like earthworms and bugs or fungi. See? We're already starting to come up with some living and non-living things that are in the mix. Soil has both biotic and abiotic components, and both are necessary for it to be able to do its job. On the abiotic side, you have things like rocks and minerals that provide nutrients for plants. Nutrients are molecules that help the plants grow and be healthy, sort of like the vitamins that people might take. There are things like calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and magnesium. They come from broken down rocks, and plants pull them out of the soil through their roots. When we actually look at the soil, we can't see these minerals. They're microscopic. But we can see all the different sizes of rock particles that help make up the abiotic part of the soil. They can range in size from big rocks all the way down to tiny little clays, like the stuff that you find on a baseball diamond. That soil that feels soft and makes really slick mud when it's wet. We can begin to see the living, or at least the formerly living, parts of the soil when we look at the surface, especially in a forest or a garden. All that rich, dark brown material is called humus, and it's the result of decomposition. That's the stuff that decomposers work so hard to make. Humus is usually dark brown or black, and the darker its color, the richer and more nutritious it is. And it's full of nutrients. Remember, without the FBI, all of those nutrients would have stayed locked up in dead organisms, inaccessible to the plants trying to grow on top. Dead organisms feed the FBI turns them into humus, and the humus feeds the plants. The biotic part of soil isn't just the humus. Soil is full of life. This is where the FBI make their homes, as well as many of the bacteria, invertebrates, and other microorganisms that are not decomposers. In just a handful of soil, just a handful, there can be 10 to 100 million individual organisms from about 5,000 different species. That's crazy. Over a quarter of the world's biodiversity, the world's variety of living things, lives in soil. That means for every 3 species you see above ground, there's 1 living below. And these organisms are just as important to protect as the ones above ground. We can be stewards of the soil by working to help keep it healthy. By allowing leaves, branches, and other plant material to decompose where they fall, we can help feed all those soil organisms and build healthy soil. If you want to detect these microorganisms with your own senses, go outside after a rain and take a big, deep sniff. You've probably smelled this scent before, the smell of the earth after the rain. This smell is called petrichor, and it comes from a protein called geosmin that many soil microorganisms produce when it rains. Many people love this smell, to the point that chemists are starting to find ways to incorporate it into perfumes. Whether they make geosmin or not, all of these organisms are essential to the soil's ability to do its job. Some of them recycle nutrients, like our decomposers, and others pull nutrients like nitrogen out of the air, making them accessible to other life, like plants. Some dig and tunnel through the soil, making paths for air and water to travel through and reach plant roots. Others move the seeds of different plants around and help them get a good start below ground. And many others eat pathogens, the microorganisms that would otherwise cause diseases in plants and animals. And many fungi connect plants to each other with their hyphae, allowing them to share nutrients and information all around the forest. This part might be my favorite. Fungal mycelia can form such a big network underground, connecting trees, shrubs, and even herbaceous plants by their roots, that some scientists have called it the wood wide web. These networks allow plants to share nutrients and pass along information about things like pests. Plants attached to a mycelial network grow bigger and stronger than plants that aren't. And all of this happens in the soil. The soil is a wonderful abiotic and biotic place. Let's spend some time getting to know the biotic and abiotic parts of the soil where we live. For this activity, you'll need a container with a lid, like a jar or Tupperware, or old peanut butter container, something to scrape up soil with, like a shovel, but even an old spoon would work, and some water. Go out to your sit spot and carefully fill your jar about halfway. Try to get down about 2 inches, deeper if you can, to get multiple layers of the soil. As you do this, observe the soil around you. What organisms do you see? What color is it? What is the texture? Is it rocky or soft? Feel the soil. Sniff it and see if you can smell that geosmin. Then, fill the rest of the jar with water. Put the top on tightly and shake it up. You should end up with some very dirty water. Put the jar somewhere where it won't get moved and wait for the particles to settle out. By mixing them in water and letting them settle, the water will separate the particles apart by weight. The biggest ones will settle out first, and you can see that already happening in this jar. The smallest ones will settle out last until you have clear water on top of layers of different particle types. The humus is the darker brown or black stuff, and it might even stay floating at the top. You can see a little bit in the bubbles up here. Check back on it every half an hour or so to see how the settling process is going. Once all the soil has finished settling, draw the layers. If you want, take the jar back outside and reach in to feel the different layers. What do they feel like? Add notes about the color and texture of each layer to your drawing. If you want, send your drawings to us by emailing them to education@mtsgreenway.org, and we might share them on our social media. And don't forget to come back and watch our next video about another important part of the ecosystem, pollinators. See you next time!